We know we have a housing crisis across Canada and Quebec, and for the most part, politicians have been promising to build more private homes. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation has said we need at least 620,000 new units built by 2030 in Quebec alone to restore affordability in the housing sector. But a new study by Quebec think tank IRIS challenges that idea. Hélène Bélanger is a professor in the Department of Urban and Tourism Studies at UQAM, and she co-authored the study, and she joins me on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's the problem with building more housing?
It's not a problem per se, but we have to stop thinking in magical terms. A massive private sector housing construction alone cannot ensure affordability, and it is at the art of the public policies to build, and build. But that way of thinking from our government just encourage the investment of public funds in home ownership programs that do not meet the needs of low and moderate income populations. So it's not true that the massive construction of bungalows and condo towers will de facto free up housing that meets the need of less well-off population in the short or medium term. So this is one of the problem at the base of what we are seeing now in public policy and housing public policies.
Right. You call it magical thinking, and I guess you're referring to this whole filtering of how building houses for, I guess, more wealthy people will eventually filter down to be more affordable. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, it is exactly what the government is thinking when they are pushing forward the way of we need to build, expecting that this new building will be the more well-off household will just buy, for example, these bungalows or new condos, and will free up some dwellings that will be occupied by less wealthy populations. This is really the trickle-down or the filtering down process that is putting forward. But it doesn't work so easily because we know that more than one over fifth household, the first-time buyers, do not free up housing because they were living, for example, with their family or with friends without paying rent. So this is not a dwelling that is now available to be occupied by another household. We have multiple ownership also. That is another part of the problem that could be that could hinder the trickle-down process. And we have, of course, all the short-term renting that can just withdraw, maybe in some provinces, a third of the home from the primary residence market in some provinces. Those are huge numbers.
Mm-hmm. And we know what a big leap it is to go from a rental to home ownership, and something that many, many Canadians are not able to do at all right now.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the fact that the government is putting a lot of money and really enormous amount of money to fund home ownership programs, and it doesn't work so easily because the housing doesn't trickle down like they want it to be. And also the construction of new housing by the private sector can have undesirable effects. So even if we put forward a lot of energy in those programs, it may contribute to gentrification of the more central areas of the cities or in middle-sized cities also, and push back the low and modest income also toward more distant neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And in their case, it's not access to property in the suburbs. They will rent, and most of them, and a lot of them do not own a car. So they are really not near of job center, commercial activities. So they are really, really pushed away from the city, and this is really a problem for the low and modest income households.
Yes, and of course we've seen that many times in Montreal, but I'm thinking most notably of places like St. Henry where people don't want to leave. They want to stay in the neighborhood that they've grown up in, but it just becomes unaffordable. So I guess if the solution is not build, what is it?
We do not say that we do not need to build, but we need to improve affordability. We need to build a lot, but we need to build better, meaning that we need to build more nonprofit and social housing. and we need to have a better rent control. So yes, we can push the idea of build, but just not building anything. It's just we need to build better and building for the household that needs it the most, meaning the low and modest income.
Mm-hmm. But then who pays for that? Because I guess it's hard to make incentives for developers to build social housing. I mean, we've seen that over the years in Montreal that, we've said to developers, okay, you can build, fancy housing, but you've also got to put some affordable housing in there. And it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, and this is a problem since the 1980s, if I remember correctly, and even prior to that, because the federal government just withdrew a lot from investing and being a part of building social housing and nonprofit housing. And they just give all the incentives, or they try to give incentives to the private sector to build this type of housing. But the government needs to invest more and be more part and go back to build housing and funding this housing. It is a political choice. They put a lot of money to favor private ownership. This is a thing, but we need to put money and act directly to build more affordable and mostly nonprofit housing.
So, sorry, just to get back, and you've said it a few times, and I'm not sure I know what you mean about the federal government putting so much money in to encourage ownership. Like, are you talking about the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Association? Like, what money are they putting in?
Yeah, there's a lot of program, and there's the new program, and I don't know how to translate it, but when you can put money away and you don't have to pay taxes because it will be used to get to ownership, a mortgage,
yes.
Exactly, and all the things that the government is putting forward. So the insurance from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So they have they put a lot of money to favor home ownership, because all the housing structure in Canada was thought that way since the creation of this CMHC. So it's really home ownership that is at the base of the housing structure. So we don't put a lot of money. It's just residual money that we will give to nonprofit sector and public sector just to house the most vulnerable households. But we need to put more energy and money and funding to build housing for the low and modest income households.
Right, but it's interesting and a little alarming to think about the government being involved in building. What with all the scandals that we've seen about spending, are there models that we can look to elsewhere in the world?
There's a lot of people that are talking about Vienna, the model of Vienna. So you have a lot of different type of housing. You have a lot of different type of nonprofit housing or limited profit housing. So the private sector still have a role to play, but the government is a lot more active. So we cannot copy Vienna because it's 100 years of public investment. But we need to think out of the box, or we need to put forward more incentive to private home ownership, and to think differently. And we cannot afford not to build for low and modest income households, because we are in a very important housing crisis. Not the availability so much as the affordability crisis.
Yeah, but it's hard to fight with that catchphrase, build, build, build.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks so much. A very interesting take, Madame Bélanger. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
That's Hélène Bélanger. She's a professor in the Department of Urban and Tourism Studies at UQAM. She co-authored the study by It is challenging the idea that in order to solve the affordability crisis in housing in Canada, we need to build, build, build.